But yeah, that would be a fun watch over the weekend. It's I think it's probably about 30 minutes. I think the video itself is 40, but the back 10 minutes is a lot of just thanking Patreon supporters and whatnot. But yeah, Y-Files, Simulation Theory, fun watch on YouTube.
Oh, all their videos are fun watches. I've even I support him by his side character is called the Hecklefish.
Oh, did you buy a Hecklefish?
I've got a bunch of Hecklefish. I got Hecklefish stickers, 2 T-shirts.
Oh, that's
and rather than just donate money, I might as well purchase some of their swag. Yeah, it's cool. I got a little Hecklefish sticker on the back of my truck. I'm waiting for someone to walk up and be like, "Hey, Hecklefish."
So Tom, take it a step further. The host of this and the creator of the Y-File show, he and a few others started a production studio, and they went to market just before COVID hit, and it crushed them, and they had to close the production studio. They couldn't move forward with it, and so he was like, "What am I going to do?" And so he created the Y-Files channel, and it's got to be the most popular or fastest growing channels on YouTube because the writing is excellent, the production quality is excellent, the storytelling is excellent, and then the Hecklefish, as Jeff is alluding to, is also a great sidekick and pretty funny.
They use the fish to say all the things that you're not supposed to say.
Yeah.
We're at the 20. I read an article this week. We're on the 20th. This is the 20th anniversary of the Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was 20 years ago.
Wow.
Nipplegate.
That's what I was going to let you say it, not me, because you have the fish and I don't.
He is the fish. It's Heckle Jeff.
Yeah. I'll have to up it a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, they sure missed a hell of an opportunity at the Super Bowl then.
Yeah.
That was Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, right?
Right.
Yeah. Man,
all right, 2 seconds,
fellas.
fellas.
Shit.
All right. Welcome.
We're back.
What's up, gentlemen?
Yeah. We're going to go from one scary story to another now, I think.
Pretty much.
So for those of you who don't know Tom, he is
everyone should know Tom by now.
Yeah. He's a fellow Snyder. Hey, Jordan. And also Tom is a fellow Virginian, although I have moved away from the state, but we came up together. Our family stores are right on the same road, and yep,
like 5 blocks.
Yeah. So we come from the same market and know all the same people. Although Tom and I didn't get to know each other until I moved out of the state. So
that's funny.
It's a shame.
That's because I never left my desk.
Well, we were kind of competitors too, so
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny whenever I was working for Mile One and they had a bunch of dealerships in the Virginia Beach area. So, me and Alex had known each other for quite a while, probably at least a year or two. And then I get the position with him, and now I'm his competitor. He still doesn't allow me to live it down because I introduced ratings and reviews and got all the Mile One dealerships leveraging reviews on Dealer Rater and all that good stuff. And he's like, "You son of a bitch, you."
Yeah, you bought our space.
Yeah.
You forced us to get on that thing. But sorry. Tom, you guys you sold your interest in the dealerships and have moved on to become not the scary guy at the Kline stores, but the scary guy to the whole industry now. So,
Thanks, Alex.
yep. And we're already planning the Halloween episode. So
that's it. Because if we're going to be
you should
scary,
wear one of those. You should wear one of those Nacho Libre masks. Just come on masks, so no one knows what you look like.
But Tom has a unique infatuation with being compliant. So
I have an infatuation with keeping dealers out of trouble. Let's say it that way.
there we go.
Does this infatuation carry over into your personal life?
Absolutely not.
I thought you had said yeah.
No, he's still a car dealer at heart, Jeff.
That's
True,
it.
true.
That's
True,
it.
true. All
You
right.
know, in third generation, right? So it's in my blood. It's in my DNA. It doesn't
Yep.
go away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Diaper changes at the store.
Right.
So, Tom, just to give everyone a little outline of how we want to tackle things today, because there's a lot. I would like to go back and revisit how old some of this stuff is, in particular the Graham-Bleach-Liley Act, and then get your theories on the motivations behind that act, the new FTC rules, visit how the FTC rules in their current rendition are a little different than how they were introduced, and then jump into some of the places where dealers could be exposed, and then some of the places where the vendors might be exposed.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. I'm sure we'll have some questions.
And by 4:00 this afternoon, we'll start wrapping up.
Yeah.
All right. So Graham-Bleach-Liley, when was that act originally brought?
I think it was May of 2003 is how old that is. The new regulations came out in October of 21, and they were supposed to be implemented in December of 22, and then it got pushed back to June of 23. So,
Nice.
And so, the updates really were primarily trying to, the FTC wants to make sure that we are protecting customers' data. And as recently, actually, as yesterday in Automotive News, by the way, Jeff Weiler Automotive had a data breach with an unspecified, according to this was Wednesday, an unspecified number of individuals were impacted. So as you know, they're in the top, 25. They're huge, and so the purpose of the
Well,
update.
and Kevin Fry over there is a friend of all of ours.
Right.
And if that's going on, chances are we're probably not going to see his face today.
I think he's probably busy.
Yeah.
Although it's unspecified, the article doesn't have a lot of detail, and it sounds like according to the article, it went back to May of 2023 is when, so last May. And Bergland Auto Group in Roanoke has recently had a data breach too. So those are, and they've got 20 stores, I believe. So, so the impetus behind the updated regulations was trying to protect customer data and making sure that, because car dealers are repositories for the maximum amount of PII, right? The personally identifiable information. We get their tax returns, we get their pay stubs, we get proof of the roof, we get proof of income, we have their whole personal information in our hands, and so they want us to protect that. And so um, that was the impetus to update the regulations.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
So that's where grain bleach lily came in. Now we have FTC rules that are on
Right,
top of this.
the cars rule.
Cars, yep. So mind running that through real quick, along with your theory as to what motivated it.
Sure. So the FTC first proposed that as the motor vehicle trade rule or the vehicle shopping rule in June of 2022. They proposed their regulations or announced the update on in December. I think it was December the 12th of last year. NADA filed a lawsuit in January. It was around the 4th or the 5th. And then the FTC paused implementation. Implementation was supposed to be by July 30th of this year. And they paused implementation shortly thereafter, the 18th or 19th or something of January. I think the motivation behind it is the literally over 100,000 complaints they got last year about car dealers, and how car dealers were taking advantage in many ways, selling maintenance on EVs, putting nitrogen in the tires, selling gap insurance to cash deals. There were, like last year, the Rhode Island AG, as an example, fined Geico Automotive $557,000 for adding in products. 6,000 customers adding in products that the customer didn't know about. So when you consider the history of the FTC, the FTC Act, I looked it up before we came on. The FTC Act goes back to 1914, and that's when the federal government was giving the FTC the authority to regulate interstate commerce, so to speak. And so that's their mandate. And the CARS Act is kind of just a routine. It seems to me like it's a routine extension to make sure that those people who are taking advantage of consumers no longer can do that. Now, the way they've done it, it seems to be overreaching, overarching, problematic, difficult, hard to comply with. There's a lot there, and we're obviously going to get into the meat of it. But it's the bad actors that are the reasons for this, and in some ways, there's a Section 5 of the FTC Act prevents people from doing deceptive things. And a lot of the 12 pages of regulation, I showed you this before, but I'll show everybody. So this is the 372 pages. That is the CARS rule, which stands for Combating Automotive Retail Scams. Of this 372 pages, 12 pages are regulations, 360 pages are commentary on those regulations, and within that, there are a notable 578 footnotes in the 360 pages. So like at least two footnotes per page. So they've documented this incredibly. And a lot of the documentation is bad actors and what bad actors have done. So the FTC has always had the ability to regulate dealers, and especially when it comes to unfair and deceptive acts and practices, which is what they're trying to do here. Is they're trying to give more meat on the bone for what exactly is deceptive. Drew says, sorry, they don't have the resources to go after the bad actors, so rather than force and going after them, they create the rules. That is absolutely true.
It's how
um,
government works all around.
and that's how government works. So, and there are plenty of bad actors, and you read about them in automotive news, or I talk about them on my restream, or come on and talk, hear about them, because there are plenty, and you hear about them every week. So, um, so they've gone, it seems like they're now over regulating. One of the examples in the cars regulation is that dealers are supposed to keep copies of all of their advertisements for 24 months, including sales scripts and other things. That is burdensome and onerous to have to comply with. And I don't know, and I could be wrong. I'm not aware of any other industry where that's a requirement. So why the FTC decided to say, okay, all car dealers, you have to now, comply with this, I don't know. Um, um, so there are very stringent advertising rules that'll be promulgated. I'll stop because I know you have a question.
Well, I mean, scripts, does this include email templates?
This includes any sales activity. Is the way it's the way it's written is text messages, and one of the main new things is text messages, emails, and any communication or correspondence. You're
So God
supposed to.
forbid you change your CRM company.
God, you do a lot of things, right? You're supposed to give a price upon first inquiry. That's one of the new stipulations. So if they call and say, "Hey, I'm calling about the whatever," you're supposed to give them a price. If they write in and they're asking, you're supposed to give them the price. Um, there's going to be disclosure requirements about it. The pricing, it's going to change if it goes through, and again, it's been stayed by the FTC, and we'll see how the court case comes out, or whether NADA and others are able to negotiate with the FTC to make that something less burdensome. But one of the main things that's going to change is, in my opinion, there's not going to be any MSRP pricing, because dealers will have to disclose if they have a processing fee or a dock fee. That has to be advertised. So if you have a $9.99 dock fee on top of the MSRP, you'll have to advertise that $9.99 on top of the MSRP. So no longer is that going to be the MSRP price, and you can't call it the MSRP price because it's not the MSRP price. So in order to keep everybody competitive, the FTC says that you're going to have to advertise that way, not including the taxes. But if it's optional, an optional cost like the processing fee, it'll have to be disclosed as a part of the advertisement.
So now you actually have to add, rather than just having a footnote, this, MSRP price does not include, processing fees, et cetera, et cetera. It's got to be now baked into the price above MSRP and displayed that way.
Correct. That's correct.
So it's your actual price before any state fees or taxes.
That's correct.
Yep.
So then when the customer comes in to negotiate, then you can say, "I'm sorry, I can no longer negotiate because we already quoted you the full price."
Say that again, Jeff. I'm not sure I understand.
I was being facetious.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't read that in the regulations.
Everyone's one
That's my
price now.
regulation.
That's the FTC did.
Yes. Yeah.
The Jeff Kirshner regulation.
That sure would be a fun way to spin up the public against it. All right. A good question from Bill Vaughn. If the price is already disclosed to somebody through, say, the website, before they call in or send a lead in, do we still have to disclose the price again?
Yes, that's the way I read it. It's through whatever means of communication. You can't assume they know or have looked at your website. They might just call in and say, "Hey, I'm interested in such and such a car."
Yeah, there's the comment. Example phone call from Ryan Everson. So customer, hi, I'm looking at your car on Auto Trader that you have listed at $20,995. So
Yeah.
the dealer has to say, first, I am required by law to notify you that the price on the vehicle is $20,995.
Awkward.
What if you just place
There's an old word we
the-
used to use a lot in the 80s. It started with an R. That's coming to mind.
And it's not radical, right?
No, it's not radical.
Not radical.
Yeah. All right. So I know before you also had to be very clear with pricing out on the lot. So if you're talking to a customer, which this has got to be hard as hell to prove, but you've got to disclose the pricing there as well. And what about payments? How on the money do you have to be with those?
Yeah, the new regulation says that when you do a payment disclosure in advertising, if it's passed again, which we don't know that it will, but you're required to give the total amount of payments to. That's a new requirement. So it used to just be cash down, the term, the payment, and the APR. Now you also have to disclose the total of payments.
Well, if it's 60 months.
No, so it would be the 60 months times the payment plus whatever the down payment is, right? If you're looking at a truth in lending box, it would be the total amount.
Okay.
That's
so
if you're
what
doing
you're actually be. Yeah. If
to be clear, total amount financed.
You make all the payments. How much are you actually paying?
Correct, yes. including interest, including down payment, including taxes. All the.
Geez, that'll scare everybody away.
Yeah.
Especially with current interest rates.
That'd be real fun with all those EVs you got on the lot, Jeff.
Yeah, delightful.
They're super cheap. Yeah.
Real quick, on the window sticker or displaying price, do you have to have price listed on the window sticker? Or we had someone else on a couple weeks ago where they had removed window stickers other than, what you need to have by law, current law, and just displaying a QR code, encouraging the customer. Although they were using price on that too, wasn't he? He was like,
yeah, he said price was $20,995 struck through was.
Yeah. And then, online price or whatever you want to call it, sale price, and then encouraging the customer to use the QR code. So I guess you could get away with that. So redact that.
Yeah, but
it should be fine.
But you bring up a good point, which is about the the Moroni sticker. Does that make the Moroni sticker obsolete or illegal? Or I don't know the answer to that. Because the Moroni sticker, as you know, is a federal law too, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a whole separate thing. And so how the Moroni sticker interfaces with the CARS regulations, I can't answer. I would be speculating.
Okay. But you got the manufacturer's sticker that has the MSRP on it, so you're going to have to addendum everything with a processing fee.
I don't know, right? I mean, yeah. That's what we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps it's in the 360 pages of commentary that I haven't quite poured through yet. But I don't think that that's been contemplated. And of course, that's one of the things that NADA was saying is that this hasn't been thought through. It hasn't been vetted. It hasn't been considered. And this is just one of the things. Chris says MSRP will always be the MSRP. It's the price the dealership prices the car at that will have to show a markup basically for a dock fee. Yeah, that's to be determined.
I mean, I guess you could get a big banner hanging on the front of the building. Just mark up every car by $6.99.
Congratulations. Welcome to ABC Motors. All cars are marked up as $699 above the MSRP.
Yep. Free calculator for anyone coming in to look at cars.
It's a good idea.
Except on Sundays.
That's it.
Items for all.
Okay, so that's scary parts 1, 2, and 3. Now, how about digital marketing, online, websites, advertising? Ugh.
Yes.
Inventory feeds. Yeah.
Well, and I think, in terms of websites, the disclosures are supposed to now be unavoidable is the word in the regulation. So there's no more, unavoidable. Like if you hover over it with your mouse, that's not unavoidable. So where it says, if you're displaying the ABC Motors price, right, and you have MSRP plus your dock fee or your processing fee, and you say, ABC Motors sale price is X dollars, and that's plus taxes or tags, that disclosure has to be unavoidable. So the website companies are going to have to come up with a way to make sure that it's unavoidable, because right now it's always at the bottom of the page. Sometimes you can hover over it. So they're going to have to make changes if these regulations go through, just to comply with that alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, Tom, did you say a hover over wouldn't suffice?
Does not suffice.
Hmm.
It has to. I can't remember the term they used, but hover overs were not acceptable.
Okay. And I would assume it has to be there close to the price as well. I think you said you can't have it down at the bottom of the page or hidden within a disclosure.
Right. And they go to great lengths of talking about, if you're doing radio advertising, you can't have the fast talk at the end, or if you have a TV commercial and you're displaying a price, that you can't type at the bottom that a customer can't read and can't understand. Here's a long comment, but it's going to have to. So advertising is going to have to change how they do it, because the FTC feels that the customers can't understand what it is that you're offering.
I wonder if they're going to do that with pharmaceutical ads.
I hope so.
Yeah, right.
At the end of pharmaceutical ads, they speed talk through all the conditions and.
If we could lobby like the pharmaceutical companies, we could do whatever the hell we wanted.
True.
The side effects are the same for this and that. Side effects including death, sickness, sore throats. Right? It's both.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah. So, just to be clear, you're showing a price on the website. You have to break down all the pricing components that would be there outside of state fees and taxes. And with a payment, because a lot of dealers show payments now, you're going to have to show the payment based on that price and the total of the payments over the lifetime of the loan. Is there anything else around the payment that needs to be directly shown?
Yes. So it's got to be the amount of payment, the number of months, the APR, and then the total of payments. So anytime you use, it has been up till now that you had to do that except for the total of the payments. That's been advertising law, and you can look in the NADA Guide to Advertising, and it displays all that very clearly.
Yeah, but that's always been in a disclaimer. Now you're saying it has to be like right next to the payment.
On payments, it's always supposed to have been very clearly displayed. If you're displaying that at the bottom of your website, then you probably shouldn't be, because it's too difficult for the customer, right? Anything that can be considered, there's a statute called UDAP, UDAAP, which stands for Unfair, Deceptive, Abusive Acts and Practices. UDAP. There are a number of statutes that are that fall within UDAP, and anything that can be considered unfair or deceptive in any way has fallen under the UDAP statutes up to this point. And that's where the FTC can use Section 5 to try to enforce those things. If it looks deceptive and somebody doesn't, somebody can't understand it, put somebody with a 10th grade education in front of it and say, do you understand this? And if they can't understand it, from their perspective, it's deceptive.
God. Not all 10th graders are made the same, man.
Right.
There's a lot of 30-year-old 10th graders out there.
And obviously that's arbitrary on my part, but if you look over the entire United States and the more than 100,000 people who complained, we don't have any demographic information, what socioeconomic background those people have or where they come from, but we just know there's 100,000 of them.
Well, so scary part number 4 covered. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley and safeguarding of customer data. That seems like a more difficult one to tackle, just because the entire industry, especially when it comes to leads, is built on the ADF format, which is really just an email.
Right. So the ADF XML format is not encryptable, right? You can't encrypt it. And so the problem for dealers is, what can a dealer do to control that to the extent that they can control it? And to my knowledge, there's only one thing that they can do, and they can put a customer data platform, something like Orbi or some product like that, in front of them, in order to have all the leads from the CRM, for example, would come into the customer data platform, and then from the customer data platform to the dealership CRM, it can be encrypted. That's my understanding, right? So dealership can't control the entire ecosystem of the car business, but they can only control what they can control. And since most of the CRM companies still don't have encryption, the data is supposed to be encrypted, Alex, both at rest and in transit. And since most of the CRM, in fact, I don't know of a CRM that is. There may be one out there. I just don't know of it. But until there's that encryption, the dealership can only control that which they can do. So other than that, I don't know that there's anything else that they can do.
Well, here's the big challenge. Yeah, the dealers, obviously, if the industry isn't providing ways to comply in this manner, then obviously the dealers, can't comply. It's just out of their hands. But the ADF, as it stands, it can be encrypted. The ADF is just the data and how it's shared, and most of the time it's sent by email. The email can't be encrypted, but you could do it through an API. As Ryan's saying here. One of the problems with some of the API stuff out there, and I'm going to leave the company nameless, but there are certified, quote unquote, connections that some companies may require in order to utilize an API and be able to send data into them. This one in particular I'm thinking of, they just raised their prices this year. So whereas years ago it used to be like $17 a rooftop, now it's $100. And this is a company that many dealers utilize for CRM and some other things. And any technology company has to have a margin in order to maintain a valuation, to keep investors happy, all that kind of stuff. everyone has to have a profit. So margins are not like on cars where you're talking 3 to 7%. It's more like a bad margin is like 30%. You don't start looking like a decent company with a decent valuation until you're in the 50% or higher margin territory, and it's like 80% is really the goal in a lot of cases. Now, not all companies are anywhere near that. Very few are, but take that as an example. So if there's $100 fee that's being charged for a lead to be sent to a particular CRM, for example, then that $100 fee has to be marked up to maintain margins. So now it's a minimum of $130 fee back to the dealer, whether it's in a product cost being marked up or a fee that's actually being transparent and shown. So you're $130, $150. So let's say you've got a particular CRM that charges this amount. Now your Cars.com bill has got to go up that much. Your Car Guru's bill has got to go up that much. Anywhere you're getting a lead from that has to do this kind of connection where they're charging that much money per connection, they're going to go up. So if you're getting leads from 10 different sources, well, you just added, over $1,000 a month to all these other things just because this one company charges that much.
Right. Terrible.
Now, there's reasonable amounts, but there's unreasonable amounts too.
Terrible. Yeah. Yeah. Tough being a dealer, as you know.
It's been a tough industry all around for a while. Yeah.
Except during COVID.
For dealers.
Right.
COVID was an MFer on vendors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's that. I also haven't seen a lot from the CRM companies where they're looking to change the way data or leads are shared.
I haven't heard of literally anything last year or this year from CRM companies. As many as much communication as I had in the different podcasts and the different conferences and all the different things, I have literally heard nothing from CRM companies about what they're doing.
Really? Someone's got to figure it out.
I would not be surprised if they sent letters to dealers that said we're compliant to the ones that asked, right? Because some of the dealers used to document. The dealers had to document by June the 9th that they've reached out to the vendors and they're compliant and that whole thing. But I don't know what those letters look like. I haven't seen them.
We've done a bunch of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's companies out there now that represent the dealers and the vendors. Talk about a racket. So they give the dealers all the same forms, and those forms say, you got to check off X, Y, and Z if you're a vendor of this dealership. And then they turn around and sell the ways that you can check off X, Y, and Z to the vendors. And we've had to hire them. So it's kind of like in order to keep up with it all.
Yes.
But yeah. So what else is there anything else we're missing here?
And also is that manual, I'm sure it's available to download. I'd like to throw a link to it over in the forums. Is that on the FTC website?
The FTC put together a kind of a primer for dealers. So if you Google FTC cars regulation for auto dealers, it'll come up.
Okay. I'll find that and add that link below the thread for today's show.
Yeah, Alex, I think a couple other things that are important to kind of touch base on. Number one, whatever your documents say. So spot disclosures are a big issue with the FTC because there's a lot of complaints with what plaintiff lawyers call yo-yo sales. So the term, which may not be familiar to car dealers, a yo-yo sale is where you knowingly put out a vehicle knowing you can't get it approved, and then you pull the car back, and based on the fact that the customer had the car in their driveway, the um, the plaintiff lawyers say that the dealers do that on purpose to embarrass the customer. And then when they bring them back in and hit them with the higher payment or the more cash down, they feel compelled to do that because otherwise they'd be embarrassed with their neighbors and et cetera, et cetera. And so yo-yo sales have been a prevalent topic with the FTC. And these regulations touch on those things basically to say that if your documents say that the customer owns the car when they drive off the lot, make sure that that's what happens, to make sure that there's no deceptive practices by doing spot disclosures where that the customer can't get approved or have reason to believe the customer can't get approved. So I think that's important to touch on. Also, in the list of things you can and cannot do are long. But I think also it is important to touch base on astroturfing. So astroturfing has been a regulation for a long time now with the FTC. And astroturfing is where you would pay somebody to put a review on Google or put a review on any website, and it's not true. It's not based on the truth, and you're just paying for reviews to try to manipulate the outcome or the number of stars. So if it's not true, you can't do it, and you can't represent that you have a 4.5 or 4.4 rating with Google if that's not true and you've paid for reviews. As I recall, there was a company that was just it was a shoe company. I can't remember which one, but they were just fined 1.9 million by the FTC for astroturfing. So that very thing. So it's mentioned in the CARS regulations that if you're going to advertise that you have a 4.4 rating on Google, that it be accurate. And so I think that's an important thing to touch on too.
Yeah.
There was a good question with a hypothetical from Ryan Everson. So he's showing or stating that you can only advertise offers for vehicles that are available on your lot. So how does this impact OEMs who have national lease offers? And what about ad spends where you put in a whole month of ad spend ahead of time, say on TV, and you sell out of the car that you were offering?
Sure. So one of the things you've heard me say before is to document your policies, document your procedures. Your dealerships were already required by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to keep a compliance management system, right, which consists of all of your compliance activities. So centralizing your what you're doing, how you're doing it. Do you have policies? Do you follow up on them? Do you audit them? Are you documenting all that stuff? All of those things go a long way when a regulator comes in to show them what you are trying to do to comply, right? It's impossible to comply with all of the rules and regulations that govern auto dealers. In fact, one of the things I did is I have put together a 48-page document that these are all the things that car dealers are supposed to comply with, right? These are all the rules and regulations. It is not possible to comply with everything. But if you don't have a way to show a regulator what you've done to try to comply, then that's the first biggest mistake that I see that dealers don't do. So you should have like a central repository for whatever your compliance activities are. And if you don't have any compliance activities, we can talk about that too. But you really should, because otherwise, when the FTC comes in or a state regulator, they're going to say that you're, quote, willfully non-compliant, which means you're not trying to comply. And then the fines get exponential, right? Then you've got 6-figure and 7-figure fines, and things get out of control. If you can show them that you are trying and earnestly trying to comply with all these rules and regulations, then I think you write a 4-figure check, right? You get out for $6,000 or $7,000, and they go on about their business because they see that you're trying to do the right thing. So coming back to the very specifics about your question, what about vehicles in transit that, as we all know, as soon as the dealership pays for the vehicle, the VIN decoder puts it on the website, even though it's not on the lot because you paid for it now. And so you don't have pictures, you may have stock photos. That vehicle's available. And if somebody complains, they come on the lot and say, I want to buy that vehicle. If the dealer's going to say, great, come right over and let's sign you up. The vehicle will be here in 6 days. And if the customer gets upset and they go complain, you'll be able to explain. You'll be able to say, "Hey, look, this is how all the systems work. The entire car business does it the same way." And they're going to say, "Well, what else are you doing to comply? Let me see your complaint log, and let me see how you resolve your complaints, and let me see." And you can bet if the FTC comes in on a customer complaint, that they're going to want to look at your Graham-Leach-Bliley information, and are you complying with that? You've heard me say before on other shows, problems start on 2 legs. They're either customer problems or they're employee problems. And if you're solving your customer or your employee problems, then you're not going to have regulatory problems. So if you're thinking about where you want to spend your time and your money, spend your time resolving customer problems, satisfying those customers. That doesn't mean to give away the store. It doesn't mean to give them everything they want, but it means having a process, having a documented process where the where the employees know what the company's policy is about satisfying customer problems, and how you do it, and to what extent, and what the escalation process is. So when a regulator comes in, you have a story to tell, and you can say, hey, they're going to say, well, let me see your Graham-Leach-Bliley stuff. You say, come right over here and have a seat. Let's just talk about compliance, and let me show you my binders, and let me show you my policies, and let me show you Fred. Come on over, Fred. Tell him about what you do every month. And you walk the lot to look at buyer's guides, and you're the one who handles the customer problems. Tell them about Mrs. Jones. Tell them about Mrs. Smith. How about the lady who was, upset in the customer lounge last week, right? All these things. If you're complying or trying to comply with all these other things, some of these small things that are not under the dealer's control will go by the wayside. In other words, it's a kind of a long answer to say, control what you can, but don't worry about the rest. And Ryan is saying the FTC is going to find something. Well, the whole point is, that's what I said. You're going to write a 4-figure check. If they come in, you're going to write a 4-figure check. If you're doing what you should, you won't be writing a 5-figure check or a 6-figure check. But the whole point is to keep them out to begin with. And the way you keep them out to begin with is you handle your 2-legged problems.
Mm-hmm. 2-legged.
Yeah. Yeah. Always fun.
Have you, I know you speak to dealerships all the time, but obviously this is an issue for a lot of vendors out there. Have you had any vendors reaching out to you as well?
Yes. I do have some technology companies. Good. Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, if a good story, I've had dealers say, well, these people are crazy. Like, what do you want me to do? And I said, my answer is always the same. I was like, well, I'm not telling you have to give them what they're asking for. Thank you, Kelly. I'm not telling you have to give them what I had a lady who was not right. I'm just going to say she was not right. And she said, I want a brand new car because I wasn't treated nicely. And I said, okay. So with a smile, and with my time, I met with this woman 16 times. When she finally just went away, I didn't pay her anything, but I met with her, and I said, "Well, I understand that this is what you want," and we talk about it and say, "Well, we haven't gotten to a conclusion this time. How about next Tuesday? You want to come back next Tuesday? How about 2 o'clock?" And we did that over a series of months, and I just wore her out, because but she knew I cared, and she knew I was concerned, and I was really trying to resolve the problem, of which the problem was all in her head, and so it was difficult to do that. But when you're talking about solving problems, one of the main issues that I see when I go into dealerships is when a customer has a problem, the dealer says, "Here's your solution," right? We know before they come into your office, we know what the solution is. Because we know what the problem is, we know why they're upset, and we already know what the solution is. Very early on in my career, I had a customer come into my office and said, "I've already done my research. I know what the problem is, and here's the solution, and hope you're happy." And she was like, "No, that's not my problem. I don't know what you think." And so then we, went through the whole process. And but the reason I'm bringing this out is try to offer two options so that you're empowering the customer to make a choice. So you're not just shoving the solution down their throat. And those two options can be economically inequitable. So, in other words, you could say, "Hey, I know you had a problem with Johnny in the sales department. I'm either going to make one payment for you of $410, or I'm happy to give you a service credit, which you can use for parts or service or oil changes or anything in our service department, for $500. And of course, we know, because we're in the industry, that $500 credit is really like $250 to the dealership, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's economic inequities, but you'd be surprised when you offer things like that what they choose. It's usually not what you think, actually, which is interesting. But offering options to customers is part of resolving, and team members too. When you have a problem with a team member, um, offering those options is empowering, and it also helps them to feel like, you took time and you listened and you came up with options, and you allowed them to have choices. The other thing, while I'm on this topic, is don't feel like you have to solve the problem at the first meeting. You set the expectation at the first meeting. Say, "Hey, I want to listen to what the problem is, make sure I understand, and then at the end of the meeting, we're going to set a time for you to come back. And the second meeting, I may have more questions, or we may be able to get to a solution. I don't know, but I want to solve your problem. I want you to be satisfied, and let's talk about your problem."
That's solid advice. Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead and set the expectations.
Well, we've been talking about the rules as they're written right now. This hasn't come to pass in full yet. It's not being enforced till July, the exception of Graham-Leach Bliley.
Yeah, it's not. Excuse me one second. It's not being enforced in July. Remember, the FTC has stayed the cars rule pending what's happening in the Texas lawsuit.
Right. So, where do you see this ending up?
Good question. I think that ultimately, if the NADA chooses to, and I don't have any inside information from anybody at the NADA, but if they choose to continue the litigation, and I think the court ultimately says the FTC has the right to regulate business. That's what they do. And so I think a lot of this, excuse me, will stay in place. If I were the NADA, I would negotiate with the FTC to get some of the more onerous requirements removed, because a lot of these things, like the deceptive practices stuff that we've talked about, is already codified in the UDAP statutes, right? This is nothing new. It's just, it's more specific regulation about our industry. But if it's deceptive, it's already law that you can't do it. It doesn't matter what the form or format is. So anything that any dealership is doing that can be considered unfair or deceptive can be prosecuted either through the court system or by regulators. So I think all that stands. I don't think any of that gets changed. I have not read the complaints. I haven't had time to get my hands on what the lawsuit actually says and what the rationale for it is. But I ultimately think the court rules in favor of the FTC. And politically, I think the reason that the FTC decided that that they paused their enforcement of it is they're just going to sit back and they want to. It makes them look good politically, right? It makes them say, "Okay, well, this is going on. We'll it's okay. We'll stop. We won't enforce it. We'll wait and see what happens in the court case." And I think that's smart politically from the FTC's perspective. It's not good for the dealers, but I think from a political perspective, I think they gain whatever little bit of clout or edge if anything happens in the political realm.
Yeah.
There's also, Ryan brings up, there's two different legislative efforts to overturn the CARS rule right now. And I looked them up just to be able to make sure I could accurately reflect what's going on. There's in the House, there's the FTC Redo Act, and there's a companion bill in the Senate that was referred to the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. So that's going on. There's also a provision in the House Appropriations which would deny funding to the FTC based on the CARS rule. So they want to deny funding to the FTC unless they remove the CARS rule. So we'll see if there's enough political will while the court case is going on to try to do something about it.
Well, it's
a lot.
Yeah. And, there's a recent ruling by the Supreme Court, and I just caught a headline on this, so don't take me to court over this statement. But I believe the Supreme Court ruled unanimously in favor of allowing people to sue agencies.
I think I read that as well.
Yeah. So you can now sue the EPA, the ATF, the FTC.
Sure.
That could make things interesting.
Hope you have a big bank hole.
Well, I think some of the gun favored lobbies do. I know there's some ATF stuff they want to combat. But
one of the other things I think I should mention is you should talk to your insurance professional about if you get sued for any of the CARS legislation, whether your insurance would cover it, and if so, how much what are the limits on your insurance? Because if you ever do have a problem, you need to know, and there are ways to bolster your risk program, of course, which we could spend a whole nother hour talking about that. I'm happy to get anybody's phone call and answer questions after. But making sure you know where your soft underbelly is on these things is super important. As an example, there's a major insurance company that only gives $500,000 of coverage on truth in lending claims, and $500,000 if you have let's say you have a CARS claim and it's for the same. Let's say you make the same mistake on every single car you sell for a year, right? If you sell 100 cars a month, you're gonna take that penalty times 1,200 times whatever else may happen, right? And it's not hard to get above $500,000. It's not a lot of insurance for things like that. So I think that's important for the dealers to consider as well.
Good point.
Well, another consideration for the dealers is hiring you.
There you go.
So, Tom, let's plug you real quick. If they wanted to find you, I know you're on every social media, but where's the most direct way to get you?
My phone number, 757-434-7656. or just tag me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Those are my two primary. And I also have a YouTube channel if you want to look at some YouTube videos under Better Vantage Point, my company. And while we're talking about a good plug, remember that my analogy for running a car dealership is like trying to tuck an octopus into bed. And the tentacles keep flopping all over the place. So what I do is I help dealers tuck those tentacles in.
Tuck the tentacles. All right.
We got to see. Let me put Tom on the solo screen so you can see his back.
There you go.
Tentacles.
Right over there. Whoops, backwards. There you go. Tuck the octopus. And the octopus over here too.
So
that's great.
It is. Yeah, so I would highly advise anyone to reach out to Tom. At the very least, go to his website and subscribe to his newsletter. I enjoy getting your emails. Usually they come on a Sunday. So
that's right. That's right. It's because people actually read them on Sunday morning.
Yep. Guilty.
Yep.
So, Tom, thank you again.
Pleasure.
Yep.
Sorry we're having to discuss this, but here we are.
Yeah, it is what it is.
We're fortunate in our industry to have someone like you who can break it down and translate these things into stuff that are actionable. So
yeah, I'm sure if you'd like to be able to duplicate yourself.
Be helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of. I can't imagine your phone not ringing all the time.
I get calls 7 days a week. I answer my phone.
Awesome.
Good.
Well, again, thanks. Definitely appreciate it. And I'll get I know we've got a link to your site and stuff over in the forums, but I'll also get a link over to your YouTube channel as well for you.
Very good.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, gentlemen. Yep.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
You too.
And a killer President's Day.
Yes.
Yeah. Later.